for example. But yeah, it does largely seem like they are playing the same stuff across, which is no great surprise because, of course, they are friends and long-term practice partners. Kind of interesting that the dynamic of the practice group has been split up, perhaps in the opposite direction than you might expect, with Casie and Bunnyhoppor here, one half of that practice group, fighting it out for the relegation bracket spot, whereas RDU and Tice, who are the other half of that, are fighting it out potentially for top of the division in Division A. So kind of weird as the two full-time competitive players here are struggling in comparison to the players who kind of have split commitments with how much time their streaming schedule takes out of their proceedings.
Yeah, I think the big impact, though, really, we have to maybe even wind back a fair few weeks in which most, if not the whole practice group, got into Division A after multiple weeks of Swiss, right? Which is just, I think when you go into a Swiss tournament, you get much more out of your practice group than prepping for one singular, like 1 to 2 matches per week. Obviously, when you put it into a big field, I think practice groups can pay off even more, and we did see that with these players getting to Division A. But let's kick it off now. First game of the day, Bunnyhoppor on the top. Wait, no. The names have confused me. Well, Casey's on the top. That's where the camera is. I'm not sure what's wrong here, the names or the camera. I guess. I don't know. Maybe the cameras. We'll have to find out and get that fixed for you. So there's a rogue on the top and a rogue on the bottom.
I believe Casey's camera and hand is on the bottom, just based on the way things are usually split up, based on how they appear on the bracket. But that is just a guess. We will wait to see.
Well, player bottom has a secret passage and not much else yet for now. Looks like we'll get it fixed for you in just a second. Apologies about that. But here, though, both players do have pretty reasonable opening hands, though. Although the Question Van Cleef is there in the bottom hand, they're just missing something to piece that together, right? Just one component card, a Miscreant, Shadow Step even potentially as well, with this Underbelly Fence pickup. Although not active yet, it would just be basically a proc minion for the Edwin and Question effect.
Well, I think we've sold it. Because one of these players played their 1-drop instantly, the other player is roping and is probably going to end up daggering this turn. So I think we know who's where just based on these opening turns.
Looks like a name issue and not a camera issue to me. Yeah, 100% money off the bottom. 100%. I'm going to see the Miscreant though, and this is what I'm saying. Hang on. Casie, yeah, I'm just going to go off camera, that's easiest. Casie does have access to the Miscreant, which, although this question's not going to come down quite yet, it just means he has the power, right? He has the resources able to either go for the Question or just go for some other stuff with double passage, double lackey, and a 1-thief. That's like all the value he could want for probably most of the game at this point.
Absolutely, yeah. That's such a clutch Dragon Horde's draw here, though, for Bunnyhoppor. Keldan seems like the only card that's going to do anything this game, so I imagine you have to pick that one. But now Bunny has options as to whether to fully tempo out here or just go for the Underbelly Fence, and I imagine that it's just the Underbelly Fence, since with a Questing plus Edwin hand, that 0-mana Vendetta is extremely valuable here.
Yeah, it
allows him to take out the Miscreant, shuts down any Evolve Lackey options. Seems pretty strong.
It's tough though then, isn't it? Because then what does the next turn look like? What if he just holds?
Does commit both. Wow, okay,
I'm surprised.
interesting.
I thought it was going to be one.
Yeah, I honestly was too.
Well, Plagiarize is something that Casie actually plays, so they'll just use that to have a secret in hand to be ready if he draws a stunner or not, but he did go for backstab instead. I'm, again, just a little surprised at that. I think having the secret just available to him was going to be pretty useful there.
Yeah, of course, backstab does play very nicely with that questing that he has in hand currently, especially as he's kind of obligated to use the Vendetta on that turn in order to take back ball control. But now, you pose the question of like, maybe you have to hold back one of them because what does the next turn look like if you don't? What does the next turn look like now that you've committed both? That's the question as well.
Yeah,
it's just like, feels like a very ugly hand at this point. you probably even have to consider throwing out Secret Passage this turn just to try and at least find something to do. Even if it just ends up being like Evil Miscreant here or something.
I think Evil Miscreant would actually be pretty sick. Honestly, like I don't even think that's a bad thing.
So many.
Probably the best chance he's got, right? I mean, a secret would be okay because whether it's Plagiarize or Dirty Tricks, it's going to generate cards in some respect. So it'll get him something. So I think any of his secrets would be fine. These players are still on the 2-2 package, so no ambush in these lists. I know some of the Asia Pacific players were still using the ambushes in there, but not for these two.
That Steladris just really wants to be a part of the team.
Yeah, that's twice it's been shown now, right?
Yeah. Ends up just going 4-4 Edwin. Now this backstab can potentially just get the party started here. Casie going to rip one of his 2 passages immediately. I like this. Similar situation. He had a relatively dead-looking hand, so he's just trying to find something to do. But Casie hits the Edwin, which can come down as a 6-6 here. Couple of small trades going through. Oh, he can backstab as well. Didn't see the backstab.
Pretty huge.
The Brotherhood shall prevail.
So the backstab he took instead of the secret, paying off, making that Edwin that little bit bigger, that little bit more difficult to deal with. And even choosing to hold off and keep the one thief just as the generally better card for a Shadow Step target instead of keeping the taunt on the board.
Debatable, right, between that and the Spell Lackey, but the Spell Lackey was a taunted 1-1 at that point, which means it was just dead to the dagger anyway, so this totally makes sense.
Yeah, and there's just always dagger. It's already equipped. It's not whether Bunnyhoppor will or won't press that hero power, right? It's just there, so...
I wonder.
Now, just on the other side, does Bunnyhoppor have to go for Secret Passage of his own? And bounce that Edwin back?
Yeah, Secret Stunner, exactly. Oof. 4 cards out of 22. You need to hit those specifically. It's not great odds.
I guess he could just play Reset and Fence, not in that order. Oh, I guess he can with Celadan. But because he does still have Celadan to snipe the Van Cleef next turn regardless.
Exactly, yeah.
And if this ends up trading, it's going to be a big win, but rolling Fireball is going to quite easily allow Casie to put this 8 damage to the dome.
It's actually not a bad outcome for Bunny, where, okay, he got 2 for 1 there off a generated card, which is kind of bad for him, but he just took 8, and now he gets to swing tempo back the other way, which is kind of nice for him, because that 8 damage isn't going to be a huge deal over the course of the game. It's not like he's playing against a burn deck. Like, this matchup is very much a fight for resources and a fight for board control, so investing 8 health there into creating the 2-turn tempo swing, I think is actually very much to Bunnyhoppor's advantage. Yikes.
What if he just plays everything?
Yeah, the questing adventure is now just your 1 thief combo activator.
If it comes to it, he could still just backstab the Celadan if he wanted to.
Yeah, I like this a little bit more, I think. Okay, Shadow Step. Just wants something to do with it. That'll do. Okay.
I mean...
That's a turn.
That's just insane. Like, he just plays the other... Oh, okay, interesting. I thought he was going to play the other rogue secret then. Only because it's going to shuffle back, right? And then he gets to keep 2 secrets in hand.
Right. There's currently no protection in play for this Hanar, so I do like Shadow Stepping that back. You could, of course, have an argument that Shadow Stepping Celadan is pretty useful there, but I think with nothing on board to protect the Shadow Jeweler, just making sure he can get repeat value out of that is a very, very big deal. And suddenly, Bunny looks like he might have just turned a corner here.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? This Wasteland is actually a little bit scary. That is dealing some pretty significant damage so far.
Yep.
And now Casie gets the attack. It's because the Reborn effect keeps it in stealth, which is a big deal here. But other than that, Casey's not really got much, has he?
But he does choose to take the basically AFK turn into the Plagiarize. He did also test for Pressure Plate at the same time by playing the Secret.
Give me a quest.
But now multiple copies of Dirty Tricks in Bunny's hand. means that he is going to have a pretty powerful turn here and over the next couple of turns as well. I would recommend not dirty tricks here.
Yeah, they might have enough of those.
The other two are so bad, though. Like, Ice Barrier is fine, but it's so expensive.
I wonder.
I guess
like
since he
this
doesn't
direction.
have... Yeah, since he doesn't have a Dirty Tricks in play right now, he can just take Ice Barrier but not play the Ice Barrier this turn. Just play Dirty Tricks instead. Yeah, this makes sense.
Choose soon.
So end with one thief.
Yeah, one Thief Backstab likely to finish out this turn. Brain Freeze is great. Suddenly there's a game. Remember, Casie commit his secret last turn in order to try and deal with the Dirty Tricks, Plagiarize, potentially pressure plate situation as well from the secrets he saw. Now that means he has a somewhat stranded Blackjack Stunner in his hand. And this board state is not getting better for him.
I was going to say, you said suddenly there's a game. There might be more of a game, honestly, because I think this game might just be over. Because anything Casie does now is always just going to be a turn behind, and because he can't get the Blackjack Stunner. Wait, doesn't he have to play the Stunner? I guess both Shadow
Steps are in his hand. That literally never works.
Yeah, oh.
Oh! Oh! It's not winning, but it's staying alive for now, and that's a good start.
Choose soon.
Needs to go quick, though.
He's going to Evo this turn as well, it looks like.
I think so, if he's going to go for that. Yeah, the prep.
Don't let the door
Yeah.
hit you.
I kind of like it. Like, yeah, if he gets one Nova, like, that's insane.
Sure. Have we seen it? The rarest of events? The Casie rope? Is it? No. No, what am I talking
He
about?
just did
Forget
it.
about it. Forget
Hello?
about it. He just invented time. He has just warped time and space there. It's impossible for Casie to rope.
Casie just is Nozdormu.
Yep. Just an actual Time Lord. Wait. Where's his hand gone? Is that how that works?
I thought that wasn't how that worked. Okay. Looks like, well, one has a disconnect. I don't know if that was Casie getting out of the game for some reason there, but I thought the evocation cards... Wait, no, they get shuffled in, right?
Well, if you do
That's
it the
how it
other way
works.
around, if you evocation first and then you secret passage, they get shuffled in and then they come back and then you keep them. But I've actually
Yes.
never done that myself, where I generate an evocation off a secret passage
And play
card
it.
and then play it. And that seems to have done something very, very unfortunate to Casey's hand, where the evocation cards are then discarded / shuffled back in, and he only then gets to keep the cards that were generated off the secret passage. I've never seen this interaction before, and clearly, by the way that Casie is reacting to it, he hasn't either.
It's like the game acted as if the generated cards were his base hand that was like a fresh hand, so it
Right.
didn't secret passage anything away. If that makes sense. I'm not saying it's correct, by the way. I'm not.
No.
This is how it works. But that's what it feels like. It feels like it's decided that's his hand, so it shuffled it back. But because that's his hand, then there's nothing to draw afterwards. That was just weird. I have no clue what's gone on there. But Casie, regardless, is going to have to deal with it. He's going to have to make something happen.
Yeah, apologies. Completely glossed over whatever Bunnyhoppor did this turn because we
Yeah.
had far more important things to work out. But questing has hit the board again. Casie is going to have to react to this board state. Of course, the questing coming back down after being stepped back on the previous turn. And as I said, even if the play had gone as intended from Casie, it didn't really look like winning. It did just look like surviving at that point. But he's going to really, really struggle to find a way to pick apart this board state long term, especially as there's still just another Hanar secret train coming back at him here.
Yeah, the waves of secrets are what's actually just forcing this game for Bunnyhoppor, isn't it? Obviously, his board is strong, but with the secret backup, he even just has the Blackjack Stunner in hand, of course, to bounce this question back to Casie again, which means Bunnyhopper's under no threat of dying ever. He could also play the barrier if and when he wants to. His options are almost limitless every single turn now, so all Bunnyhoppor has to do is not like randomly mess up, which I think of all players I would put Bunnyhoppor on the one to not mess this up. Not only an expert with this specific deck, but just a very solid Hearthstone player in general.
Right. Bunny's fully committed to the Secret Chain here, which I'm assuming he's just going to do alongside Blackjack Stunner and possibly the Brain Freeze, which is never lethal, I believe. But there were potential outs, maybe? No, I don't think so. Even like Perfect Evil Miscreant outcomes, I don't think would have got there because you have to spend 3 mana on one card, which kind of throws away your maximum damage. And even if that was possible, it still probably was the highest win percentage line to go for this. This seems very 100%y to me to just dominate the board as best you can here.
I mean, there's the Colossus of the Moon in hand, which looks like a guaranteed win to me. There you go, see? The Colossus of the Moon came into the hand, Bunnyhoppor wins the game. A strange happening in that game, but I think the outcome wasn't too crazy there. I think the outcome was going to be Bunnyhoppor taking control regardless. As you mentioned, even if he did have access to his other cards that afterwards, it probably wasn't going to be enough to stall out or even deal with the board in any way with that secret backup.
So I was a little bit distracted, and the only thing I can possibly think of that I was trying to like resolve what happened in my head is that the sequencing that the game does it in overdraws your cards that come back from the secret passage, right? Because your hand is still full of the evocation cards, and then the evocation cards disappear, and then you're just left with the cards that you generated that turn from the evocation spells. I can only imagine that's what actually happens, but whether that's intended or not, whether that's a bug, whether either of those players would have known about that interaction as well, which Casie clearly didn't. But they are probably the two players in the world who have played the most of this deck, with Bunnyhoppor being a holdout from day one, Casie coming around to the deck, and when Casie likes a deck, you best be sure he jams a million games of it as well.
Right.
So for that interaction not to have come up is pretty interesting for sure, but brutal to Casie. Absolutely disgusting for Casie, with everything that's on the line for him now to run into that weird interaction in game one. It's got to be a horrible feeling for him.
Yeah, but it has led to Bunnyhoppor leading the way in the mirror match 1-0 so far. We are going to go to a very quick break while we get the players ready for their game number 2. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Hearthstone Grandmasters European region. We have Bunnyhoppor versus Casie. We really wanted to try and work that out. And with our massive brains combined, we did think we got to it and think it's not a bug, actually. The interaction that we saw was actually correct. It's just a rarity. Do you want to explain what we think, Saul?
Sorry, people might be familiar with the interaction the other way around, where you play Evocation first and then you shuffle them into your deck with Passage and you get to keep the Evocation cards. So as we understand it, Evocation and Secret Passage are both treated as equal end-of-turn effects in the order of operations in the game code. So therefore, play order matters. So if you play Evocation first and then Secret Passage, they resolve in that order. So Evocation resolves first, the cards get discarded when they're not in your hand, and then Secret Passage resolves and you get to keep the cards because they come back. Whereas if you do it the other way around, the Secret Passage resolves first, which tries to bring all of your other cards back into your already full hand of Evocation spells, right, burning all the cards. Then the Evocation resolves, which ends up discarding all of the Evocation cards, leaving you with just what you generated from the Secret Passage.
And then Secret Passage happens.
Yes, we think. Like, that makes sense between the combined powers of myself, Raven, Abar, Daruk, all the people who were kind of in our production chat trying to work this out. That's how we think it works up until this point. But still, a very, very unfortunate circumstance for Casie, to be sure.
Yeah, definitely want to potentially throw him off. But again, as we've said and we say all the time when things like this happen, for whatever reason, is the game's done. It's decided. It's finished. Now, Casie just needs to laser focus on game number 2. And Bunnyhoppor is going to be on his Demon Hunter for game 2. And Casie is going to be switching over now to his... Wait, that's wrong. Never mind. That says Priest. That can't be correct. Someone's lying to me. Casey's not going to be on his Priest because I don't think he has one. Maybe these names are mixed up now. And it's actually Bunnyhoppor on Priest and Casie on Demon Hunter. I'm so confused.
Yeah, we are going to see now if Casie can re-establish himself, because I'm sure he's gone through a bit of an emotional roller coaster there, and it is going to be Bunnyhoppor on the Priest for sure.
That makes more sense. I was getting very, very confused, and I was like, look, already this series is sending me off here. I'm so confused. I don't need any more adding to it, but yeah, we are going to get in now, and not a bad opening hand for either player right now, but what do you think Bunnyhoppor is going to throw away here? Is the Spellkin a little bit too slow?
I'm not sure. It is a really, really good card in the matchup because of just the spells that it can generate for you. With Renew, with Wave of Apathy, which can be useful as well, and with Radiance, of course, which can end up being the huge one. But I think, honestly, key to this matchup is getting on board early, just so you don't get run over by a smooth minion curve from Casie with the Demon Hunter, right? If Casie goes like 1-drop into 2-drop, you want to try to not get beaten up by those minions. But this is actually kind of the dream scenario now, where Bunny can actually fight for board early and does have that Kobold Spellkin to rely on the mid-game. So I think I do like the mulligan.
Here already, Casie having... Not quite yet, of course. There is that turn 4 gap, I guess, and then arguably turn 3 if you discount the one maker, 1-cost spell. But really, has a bit of a dream curve here. 1-drop into 2-drop, and then Skull will be on that far left, ready and waiting. And this is exactly what I like to see when I'm against Priest anyway. Bunnyhoppor here choosing whether to coin out a 2-drop of his own. If he goes for Pyro, it does die to the hero power, but sometimes you're actually okay with it. The only issue with that is, although it can test the 1-3 fairly, the Pyro can be pretty powerful later on with exactly that card, the Apotheosis.
Could just see a Tempo Sethic here or a Tempo Pyromancer. Obviously, there's upside to holding back on both of them here. Largely in both cases because of that Apotheosis that you have in hand, which is powerful alongside both of them. But I think I do like Bunny just trying to aggressively fight for board.
Yeah, it's a tough one, isn't it? This coin's going to be very impactful going forward, though, potentially with this Cabal. Casie did find something to fill out this turn with as well.
Yeah, but this might seem weird to a lot of people, right? Sethic Veilweaver, such a valuable card, thrown out here in the early game, essentially just to trade with a 2/2, but that's what this matchup is about. Priest has all of the healing it needs to be able to outlast the direct damage that Casie can throw to face with weapons and Twin Slices and Glaive Bounds and Lapidaries. But what it can't keep up with is if a board gets stuck and repetitive damage starts to come through. So you really do want to use your early game minions just to fight for board as aggressively as you possibly can, which is why I'm leaning towards just Tempo Kaj here.
Yeah.
Bunny does the same.
And it opens up more options, right? Whether that's Coin Spellkin, whether it's Cabal Coin for next turn. The Apotheosis is likely to have a target as well because this is a 3/3 unless it gets silenced and cleaned up. So yeah, some options here. I do wonder as well. Okay, he's going to trade. Okay.
Yeah, he has a nice answer here with the Shard Shatter, and I do think Consume Magic is of vital importance in the matchup because Apotheosis almost always lands at some point, and if you don't have the Consume Magic for the Apotheosis minion, you're generally forced to trade into it twice, unless you also have a giant Blade Dance to go along with it. So Consume Magic quite often comes down to deal with that Apotheosis target, and particularly in the world where it's not yet outcasted, because you might find the opportunity to get it into outcast position before that Apotheosis situation comes up.
Yeah, I'd really like to see a Raise Dead here from Bunnyhoppor, as he has some pretty good tools in that pool now, and he could even just replay Kaj on the 3/2 now, and just say, okay, you just traded all your minions and a hero power and a Shard Shatter into that, go again, but instead, Bunnyhoppor is going to coin this Spellkin out by the looks of things.
He might miss on the Kaj there as well. It's not a guarantee since he's had the Sethic die, the Kaj die, and the minion from inside the Kaj has died as well at this point. So that is a whiff potential. And this also means that his hand is now loaded up with cheap spells for that Cabal Acolyte, right? Where one of the options here was a Wave of Apathy as well that Bunny could have hit that would set him up pretty much perfectly for the rest of the game here, just being able to steal minions. But now, double Apo in hand. Bunny has the opportunity to heal all the way back to full here, potentially. And I think, again, I might just like to see the Raise Dead cashed out here for the reason that Bunny's going to get so much immediate healing that he can kind of compensate for that 3 damage if this is going to be a Raise Dead Apotheosis turn.
I even like the Smite on the 3/2 and just go face with the 3/5. Like, he has enough spells, right? He has enough stuff, and if he just has such a strong security on board, he won't need the Smite as like a combo activator in some respect anyway.
Yeah, I like it. I did like it. I liked the Smite and Embalming ritual there, and I liked the Raise Dead as well, but Bunny clearly has a different plan right now. Again, those cheap spells are very useful alongside that Cabal Acolyte, which I think is probably a big part of the reasoning.
Casie taking a turn off this skull there to deal with the major threat that, of course, was the Spellkin with Apotheosis. I do like it. And now he has Skull, Consume Magic Skull. Whoa.
Yeah, that left-hand side of Casey's hand is certainly looking pretty juicy right now. But this Glaive-bound Adept, not really a problem for Bunny right now. He can just Pyro Smite to clear it up. Could toss in Sethic with that as well. He just wants to start getting threats on board as well. He's already seen 1 Shard Shatter be used, so would probably feel relatively safe building a board of that size.
Could you ever go a little bit differently and go Sethic Embalming first and have a little look, see what happens?
That's fair.
Because he might not need to, right? And then he can keep his Pyromancer potentially for an Apotheosis turn.
Ooh!
That's a good one.
The nuts. Wait. He's going to Pyro Raise Dead to end the turn then, I assume?
Or is he just going to pass anyway? Just leave it?
Wow, okay. He's going to let it chill. Interesting. Really, really into that Pyro Apo combo in his hand, it looks like.
Pretty big deal as well that you can't consume magic your own minion to silence an enemy, which is pretty important there. If Casie wanted to, he could have opened up 6 damage this turn, which would have been huge. If that worked.
Right.
Now, first goal goes down. Marrow Slicer and Militia. That is actually pretty good, especially because I think there's a lot of shards in the deck so far.
It is. However, Bunny has passed the check. He has Soul Mirror in his hand. Really the one card that you have in your deck to be able to deal with that situation. You can do something messy with Pyro in some positions when you run into the Sociologist board. But right now, just having the ability to press Soul Mirror at will is going to make Bunnyhoppor much more secure in the coming turns.
The positive for Casie, though, is because it is reduced and he also has some other powerful tools in hand, a lot of the time it feels bad as Demon Hunter because you play Militia for 7 and probably nothing else, especially on curve, of course. But then your opponent Soul Mirrors and you kind of just reset the game, but a turn later. You know, like nothing's actually really changed. But because the Militia is only 4 mana, he can play Militia, he can go Marrow Slicer, even go Hero Power and maybe play a Panthera as well if he wants to. You know, so he can actually do more with his turn than you would normally be allowed. So Soul Mirror isn't quite as big a punish.
This is why I do have some issue with Bunny greeding the Pyro Apotheosis combo and not using the Pyro to clear up the Gladebound on the previous turn, is that, sure, he waived it for 1 turn, so no big deal, he can leave it there. But then what was the plan to deal with it on the follow-up, right? Like, it was a little bit scary just to be taking this 6 now when you don't necessarily have to. And now, of course, that Pyro Apotheosis can end up representing a million healing that offsets the threat of that 6-1 being set up. But it's still a little sketchy.
You know what I was thinking about, actually? Let it hit for 6 and then just Cabal wave it the turn after was what I was looking at, honestly.
Sure.
Well, I wonder what card's going to be played this turn. And because I've said that, Bunnyhoppor's going to find a way to not Soul Mirror. I can feel it.
If he was lower on health, you could make the argument for doing it the Pyro way instead, right? You have Pyro, Apotheosis, Raised Edge, Shadow Death to mop everything up, but he just doesn't need the healing right now, so I can't imagine this is anything other than Soul Mirror.
And also, there just isn't really that many targets for Soul Mirror in the deck in Demon Hunter anyway. This is pretty much the one-to-one trade you want to make.
Wow! What's happening?
I don't know. I actually don't. He's going for the Apotheosis.
Yeah.
Yes. This is sticks a minion. Instead of just letting Casie have effectively a free turn.
It's fair, but when Bunny greeted on the Pyromancer with the Apotheosis in hand, this was not my expectation of what he was trying to set up. My expectation was that he wanted to hold on to that Pyro combo for massive amounts of healing later in the game.
And look at the damage Casie can get now. Is that just about, let me count, 1 million in his hand right now?
Yes. How much does he actually have? Marrow Slicer 4,
18,
9,
19.
11, 13, 15, 17, 19, 21, 22 with Hero Power.
Oh, sure, we hear upon the weapon, yeah.
I must consider.
That is Damahe.
Yeah, it's just nearly lethal.
Looks like this 3-2 is sticking around as well.
Nah, he's going to Soul Mirror this, judging from what Bunnyhoppor's been doing this game.
Yeah.
Imagine.
Alright, giddy up, Casie. One plan and one plan only. Lapidary first, so that he doesn't delete all his fragments with the card draw. Now he's going to draw the cards. Gets rewarded by drawing the fragments after the fact. Second Lapidary, still active!
Does he go Blade Dance here?
Lapidary comes down, draw more cards with the Panthera. Instant
I like the Blade
Blade
Dance a lot.
Dance.
Yeah, I like
17!
Yeah! Oh, it's so insane. Just a casual weapon swing for 17. And he still has, what, 2, 4, 8, 10, 12, 13 with Hero Power next turn?
And he Blade Danced on a turn where all of his weapon damage came from Lapidaries, which means that the Murozond is like not active in being able to clear. There's only 2 Chaos Strikes, I believe. One Chaos Strike, yeah, you're right, in terms of adding damage there. So
it was just a good turn, wasn't it?
Yep.
That was just perfect.
So even the correct order on the good order for Bunny on the Murozond coming back the other way will not represent a board clear here. So Bunny does get good value out of the Soul Mirror now, but there's 2 damage left up on board.
Not going to be good enough.
There's 8 damage from Twin Slices, there's a Chaos Strike, and there's an Eldraki Warblades in hand. Casie just got there this game. That's absurd.
The Skull's Keep, it's just the best card, right? You don't want these other cards that like, oh, it can chip damage over the course of the game. You want to 2-shot your opponent in this matchup, and that is exactly what Casey's done.
Sorry, Ray, I'm sorry, but just look at both of our players right now. Like, that's more important than anything any of us have to say. Like, the stress of what this means to both of them is clearly adding up. Casie, obviously, already being through the ringer at this point, with that interaction coming up in game number 1. But then from Bunny's perspective, like, to me, you know, from my potentially uninformed onlooker perspective, that looked like a potentially messy game from Bunnyhoppor. He certainly disagreed with a number of the plays that he made, and I do have pretty significant experience in that matchup. Having played a great deal of 2 of Priests, you're going to run into Demon Hunters. They're just all over ladder at the moment. It just happens. So you play that matchup a lot, and I do think there was a few decisions there that, you know, didn't really line up in the way that I was mapping out the game, which is not to say that Bunny didn't have a completely different roadmap in his head that didn't quite pan out, because, you know, he still ended up soul mirroring a very similar board to the one that he could have soul mirrored in the first place. Like, the Pyro and the Soul Mirror were relatively equivalent against both of those board states. It's just that the Pyro Apotheosis clear could have restored him to 30 after that, like, 17 damage came through from that board state the other side, right? And especially when the Pyro had been greeded for the sake of leaving a 6-1 up on the board. I'm just not entirely sure it all lines up from Bunnyhoppor's perspective.
Yeah, I'm definitely not one to question Bunnyhoppor's plays too much, or really, you know, after the fact disagree with many of them. But for me, there is the Pyro and Soul Mirror, which you can make arguments for, you know, one way or the other, of course. Like I said, he did stick a board that turn versus Soul Mirror wouldn't have stuck a board, so there was something active for him to do. But for me, it was just like the Holy Smite, yes, Sethic's on board, he gained a card, but then the follow-up of just like wave and then not really have a good way to actually kill it afterwards was strange. With a Cabal Acolyte in hand, he could have just took 6, which he ended up taking anyway, and then just stole it the turn after, in a lot of cases. So, bit of a strange mid-game there for me from Bunnyhoppor, but that does mean this series is even 1-1, and I do believe it is going to be Casie on his Mage now, going up against Bunnyhoppor's Demon Hunter. So, still going to see Demon Hunters involved, just on the other side of the board for this time, as Casie, of course, has his win on it. But yeah, it's a huge deal, and these games are going to get progressively more tense as we move towards this. Just a reminder, the loser does have to fight in a relegation bracket next week. The winner gets to play in playoffs for a chance at Worlds.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. It couldn't be a bigger difference in one single game of our match of Hearthstone.
I know, it's so ridiculous, right? Like, obviously, in reality, every match that they've played up until this point carries equal importance, but it's so much more dramatic when it's the final match and everything just appears to be on the line in this one individual matchup, and the drama of this series so far is certainly not letting us down.
Here we go, though. A pretty positive opening hand once again from both players. Casie not one to keep Cram Session there with that hand. Very interesting to me. I think that was one of the hands that looked like a good Cram Session. Obviously no spell damage available, but they choose to put his faith in the Sorcerer's Apprentice Mana Cyclone combination. Seems to have been paid off. But Bunnyhoppor's hand, at least pre-mulligan, doesn't look too shabby either.
Doesn't. Consume magic can actually be relatively useful in the early game, especially in outcast position, because you deny the Solarian from your opponent, which is actually one of their biggest win conditions. I mean, I say one of their biggest win conditions in this matchup. It's one of their biggest win conditions in any matchup, let's be perfectly honest. But particularly in what is largely an unfavorable, it's one of the few cards that can do enough just in a single draw where it's just like, boom, okay, freeze your face, like cast Deep Freeze, you know, Power of Creation into Sunwalkers, like whatever it can actually make happen. something outside of the scope of what your deck usually does that can actually win the matchup. And that I think denying Solarian primes can be very, very powerful. But fully respect Bunny here, just going for a more aggressive mulligan, looking for minions to play in the early game, things to do in the early game, because largely this matchup, much like Priest, can be dictated by who gets control of the board early. If Demon Hunter just sticks a few minions and gets a bit of chip damage in early, can make things much, much easier for them.
Yep, very true. And Bunnyhoppor going from 1-drop to 2-drop and then having Panthera for effectively his 3-drop in this deck. He's going to be looking quite good himself here. I do like the trade here. Just get rid of the board. Don't let any shenanigans happen. And if Casie really wants the Arcane Missiles, he would have got it anyway. So I prefer to just have the minion off the board for Bunny. Casie has ever taken about 1 second to make the turn with the second spell wing.
There it is. The cursed card has entered the hand, Raven.
Definitely feels that way from Casey's point of view. Whether it's that or Passage, we'll have to ask him later, but he's upset with one of those.
Such a shame here, because I'd really like the turn of just tempoing a 2-3 and tossing out the mana burn here, but obviously Panthera, it's just so hard to turn down the hero power. Just -1 card in hand to deny some mana for the opponent, but I think turn 3, turn 4, and turn 5 perhaps are like the most powerful turns to drop a mana burn against Tempo Mage most of the time.
On coin, turn 3, definitely.
Yeah, exactly. For pretty much this exact reason that you are watching right now. Definitely not going to be critical of this one. With Caster Vision, it's an easy call to make, right? Like, skip the card draw and play the mana burn and just beat them up with your minions based on the exact hand that I'm looking at. But against a lot of other hands, that mana burn would still be incredibly useful going into turn 4 or turn 5 moving forward. So, very, very reasonable decision on Bunnyhoppor's part.
No weapon by turn 4 is definitely something you don't want to see as Demon Hunter in any matchup, honestly. So it's going to be a little bit more of a struggle for Bunnyhoppor. I think he might have to actually commit this Cane to kill off this Apprentice. We could see that obviously it's a huge deal, but I think it's fair to assume it's a big deal regardless. Just an Apprentice sticking in general for Mage is very, very powerful.
Indeed.
And he's got nothing else to do, let's be honest, right? He could hero power, swing into it, and then blade dance. But,
sick! Oh, that's the winning line. All right, let's do that. Yeah.
He sets up the Cyclone to be hero powered into next turn.
Yeah, milk that hero power value. That's what you need right now. Yeah, it has to be the Cane.
It's got Hunter in the name of the class, to be fair.
That's true. Start weaving them in. Yo,
Giant
so
changes a few
already.
things.
He didn't even play the Evo, and it's that cheap already. Like, that's insane.
Yeah, the double spell wing opening, right? That's already 2.
Yep.
Coin as well.
Yep.
There's 3 already right there.
Yep. Just being on coin, such a big deal.
Okay. Lapidary, whack him in the face. I think it's got to be the play.
Is it face, though? That's so... Obviously, like, I'm fully on board in normal circumstances that as much damage as humanly possible should go face in this scenario. But without a weapon to rely on, you're so short on damage that maybe you have to fight for board more aggressively, because you don't even have like a Blade Dance set up next turn. It's 2 turns away right now.
That's true. But sometimes as a Demon Hunter, you have to rely on the fact that you're just going to draw a weapon next turn.
Okay.
Because otherwise, like, what is the turn? Like, he's going to put 5 damage into a 2-2 to protect his 5-5. Like, that seems like it's just losing a little bit more quickly than anything else.
Yeah.
Oh, the casual 5 damage brain freeze from Casie, though.
Yikes.
It's nearly a weapon.
Okay.
That definitely helps.
Does Casie has the ability to just straight up evocation for a Conjurer's Calling next turn, though, if the Giant isn't removed. He won't have that much space in his hand to play with if he does want to go for that.
Also, What if Bunny just silences the 3-2, plays Shard Shatter, and mana burns this turn with a hero power? That seems quite powerful, actually.
Okay.
Because all
I'm
you
on
need
board.
is one little turn of wiggle room, right? Because then he has Soul Shard Lapidary and Blade Dance the turn after. So
Yeah.
the mana burn might be enough. It would stop a Raz coming out on turn 5. Well, sorry, not on turn 5. Obviously, it'll be turn 6, but it stops the Raz coming out.
Right.
It slows down the turn if there's any more card generation. He knows there's 3 random spells in hand, which again,
Yes.
if he's not played them yet, might be expensive, which again, if there's some cards like that he can slow down. I think the mana burn looks well positioned here.
I do too. The one worry is Conjurer's Calling still, because obviously the natural version in the deck could just be played perfectly on curve at that point. But I, while you were talking, was trying to find some solution to my opponent has Conjurer's Calling in their hand, and there just isn't one. There just isn't one, so you just forget about it and just say it isn't there, and you make this play. Bunny did preserve the Consume Magic, which was the other counterpoint I was going to bring up, because you can kind of weigh up there how important a prime is for your opponent versus how important a card draw is for you. And I think the card draw might actually be more important for Bunny right now with the hand that he has.
Oh. I forgot. The Shard Shatter would have used his last Soul Shard, wouldn't he?
Oh, did you want to do this with the plan of Blade Dancing with the Lapidary on this turn? Okay. So, but again, because
it's my fault. I'm very stupid.
Right. Because, well, I mean, I also didn't fully listen to you because I tuned out to try and solve the Conjurer's Calling issue. So
you can still deal with this.
I could have caught that earlier, but here we are.
Either way, he had a response. So, again, it looks rougher than I thought it was going to look, but still, the Giant has gone. The board is clear. Bunnyhoppor has a plan. But again, just I think almost no matter what, he might need to Blade Dance next turn if his next draw's bad. Because he just needs to use this Consume Magic to draw a card.
It's very true. 3 splash over to the Gladebound means that the ping can clear it up. Casie right now is largely just in dump his hand mode, right? He just wants to make room for that evocation to try and end the game with. Alright, Soulshare reactivates. It's a big deal. I like using Gladebound here, though, because you can still top deck Warblades to pair with that Lapidary, which would be insane in this position. You can also line up that Lapidary with the Blade Dance still if you need to clear another board.
It's the Blade Dance is so big there. You can see the damage it deals when you can't do that, right? Just look a couple of turns back.
Yep.
Casie now is under a little bit of threat himself, and with no real aggressive with no real aggressive Casey's like, you just go away. I've had enough of you today. But he doesn't have that many aggressive options himself now. These are all very defensive, and although Casey's not really close to dying anytime soon, the more time he gives Bunnyhoppor, the more time Bunnyhoppor's got to get to Skull, to get to card draw, to be able to just get hold of something.
Right.
So he can play the... I think he can play the Lapidary Test for Entity and just Blade Dance it anyway.
Yes.
Seems
You would
very good
love for this to be Mirror Entity. Mirror Entity is the dream scenario right now. The fear is what happens if it's Counterspell, Netherwind Portal, that kind of thing instead.
If it's Counterspell, he gets to draw a card with Consume. He could also one-maker first, but then he wouldn't be able to Lapidary and Blade Dance, so it does give him a bit of a limitation there. Oh, sorry, and
Yes,
test for Counterspell.
Right, okay. It's the phase attack to go through, so now he has full knowledge. And this 4 damage on board does look kind of scary here, has to be said.
It's just a Blade Dance, isn't it?
It is. I'm just laughing because he's been trolled, right? Like, he's wanted to cycle that Consume Magic for so long, but if he knew he was going to pick up more card draw from another Consume Magic, he might have just used it earlier and had a smoother hand. Like, sometimes random generation is a cruel mistress. Slowly but surely, Bunny just climbing back into this game, though.
Yeah, weirdly enough, this Blizzard is actually keeping Casie in the game. Right? And he's had evocation for so long. And there was a turn. Oh, that's huge.
Oh.
There was a turn where Casie could have played it. I'm not saying he should have, but he could have. Whereas for now, it's been in his hand all game, and it's still not had an impact. Oh my.
Finally.
Oh!
Finally, a weapon appears for Bunnyhoppor.
I think he goes again, right? With Skull?
Well, I mean, ideally, yes, but I think he's also obligated to consume magic this turn, right? Which would then mean that Marrow Slicer isn't coming down.
I think Marrow Slicer trade into it and then Skull seems pretty good to me.
It's 20% of your health at this point, Raven.
But you shuffle two shards in. Like, is not casting this Skull worth taking one less damage?
I think it is, yeah.
Oh, I'm never going to be with you on that. Insane! He could have just played another Skull this turn.
You just play all you've done is taken one less damage, and now you can play it from the left-hand side this turn anyway. Like, how is this not better? You get to push 7 instead of pushing 0. You take 1 less, and all you've done is delayed your Skull by 1 turn. How is that not better?
No, he doesn't have a silence. He had 2 a minute ago. Here comes the evocation. Another Blizzard, Nova. Wow, a lot of AoE. Back to playing Freeze Mage at this point.
Yep. Those are not it either.
It's got to be Intellect, right?
I think so.
Wait,
wow, he takes the Nova. He's just going to get there with these 1/3s. That's the plan now.
Well, it surprised me a little bit because I guess if he wants to play Evocation again, then Intellect isn't good. But he's not really seen any weapons this game, and there's one equipped now. And like, is he expecting to be able to freeze this board out and for that to be relevant?
Bunny test counterspell, rip Skull number 2. The shard he drew off the top at the start of the turn was actually a pretty good draw for him since it stops the fragments interfering with the Skull. Wow, perfectly sequenced fragments, although that now turns off the Shatter Shard Mystic.
He can just re-equip.
It's true. That is true. He has 0 mana Spirit Jailer as well that he could have just tossed in there if he really felt like he needed to answer these 2 1/3s. I mean...
Is he just dead?
We know he isn't, but from Bunny's perspective, this is starting to get quite exciting.
He can always swing in, right? So now he can Spirit Jailer, Shard Shatter, Hero... Oh, I guess he could Hero Power. Huh. Did he not want to Hero Power and end the turn on Panthera?
Yes.
Yeah, I think he messed up there, didn't he?
Yep, it's just a miss damage. It's just a straight up miss damage. Yep.
But the other's like, 1 damage!
I mean, look at how much damage he has in his hand right now. That's a huge deal. That is an enormous deal. Yeah. He has Marrow Slicer, Second Slice, Hero Power. If this board gets cleared, he straight up doesn't have lethal right now because of that mistake. That is just potentially a straight up throw from Bunny on that previous turn.
Yeah. And it was pretty basic, let's be honest. Again, I don't want to go in on anyone, but it was a pretty basic play. Pex's Blast doesn't make too much of a difference. Arcane Explosion could help clear some of this board off. Does just have the Nova again, so I'm actually a little bit surprised he's not just gone for like a Pexis Blast here and just trying to get as much damage as possible for face.
Frost Nova, and you see Bunny's reaction to the Nova. He knows
he's gonna rip something off the top.
He needs help from the deck. That's not it.
Wait, is there anything even left as extra damage?
Nope.
There's not, right?
2 Warblades, 1 Sociologist, 1 Soul Fragment.
Yeah. It was just lethal this turn.
I mean, he has so much damage over multiple turns that this probably still doesn't matter, but it could have, and it's a colossal mistake whether he ends up winning the game or not. Like, the result of the game does not change how bad of a mistake that was on the previous turn from Bunny.
Yeah, so here I think it's Soulshare, Marrow Slicer. Oh, I don't think he should play the Horde Pillager.
Why not?
Treasure?
Well, importantly, I think the Marrow Slicer and the Soulshare need to come down because I think he needs to think that he needs to heal as much as possible soon.
I see. Sure. So you just want the extra. You want to just want the extra 2 fragments in there. Yeah, that makes sense.
Because right now, he could have even done this and potentially, I mean, it would lose damage again, which would be bad, of course, but he could have actually done this and still equipped the Marrow Slicer, of course.
Oh,
if he wanted to save a mana, but...
Video game, why are you like this?
Rolling Fireball.
3 puzzle boxes!
Rolling Fireball clears the board, but there's no way to freeze face now.
Nope. Casie's dead.
No, there's no world in which Bunnyhoppor isn't going to swing face here, even though there's a secret.
Hero power first, Bunny. Just to be sure.
Just press it. Just press it. And there it is, the relief. And Bunnyhoppor, as you can see, needs to refresh himself after that because I will say this series, we had some questions about the Priest play in the previous game, and there was just a basically missed lethal setup here from Bunnyhoppor in this game. So he is probably quite upset with himself at this point because this is not how he will want to play in any means.
Yeah, has not looked like the usual super clean, high-level standard of play that we're used to seeing from Bunnyhoppor, and rightly so. It looked like he just wanted to take a few seconds away there to compose himself, maybe refill that glass of water, which looked fairly empty towards the end, because again, stakes are massive for this matchup. The loser of this match will finish 7th, no ifs and buts, that's just happening. And that means that they are in the relegation bracket positions from Division A. Whereas the winner, they're in playoffs. They're looking towards Worlds. It's absolute night and day, the difference between the fates of the 2 players based on the result of this one single match of Hearthstone.
Yeah, all on the line, and then Casie looks like he's going to be queuing his mage once again, and of course this means that Bunnyhoppor has only his priest left to get a win with here. So I'm guessing while Bunnyhopper's got to take just a quick second there, what do you make of the priest and mage matchup? It seems to be one of the staples of this expansion / season of Grandmasters.
It does, and they're actually remarkably similar decks. I always hear people make like the mage and rogue comparison, and no one throws priest into that mix, right? Where essentially priest is actually arguably more so like mage because they both rely on that same engine of one makers and kobold spellkins and generating 1-mana spells because the quality of the 1-mana spells in both classes are so high. And then they use that as such a big resource engine that they can almost cut away all the other fat from the deck because they never run out of cards just based on that engine. That's what you see in priest, that's what you see in mage. Mage is more outright explosive in individual turns than Priest is capable of doing, whereas Priest's consistent long-term value plan is a little bit stronger. So usually based on that dynamic, you see the matchup going as both players are high on resources the whole game, but it's Mage trying to make the aggressive push every turn and then Priest having to find the answer. There are exceptions. Sometimes you just see one player not hit the resources and then it's a stomp. One player just doesn't have cards to play with and the other person does. That's an unwinnable game of Hearthstone in most occasions. And then sometimes Priest just wins board early, in which case the Mage really, really, really finds themselves on the back foot because their deck is not as well equipped at dealing with that situation.
Yeah, especially when you can see that Bunnyhoppor is actually playing the 1 Twilight Drake in his list as well. And if we find, if he gets hold of that early enough, whether it's turn 3 or 4, which is doable with Draconic Studies, of course, it's a huge impact. I think I said it to you the other day, where every time I've seen a Twilight Drake come down, on curve, whether that's 3 or 4 in Priest, it's looked fantastic. It's not like, oh yeah, I forgot we have to be able to deal with big minions sometimes because most decks are being trimmed down so much. You can't really just kill like a 4/7 on turn 3 or 4. It's a pretty huge deal there. So I think that will be one of the key cards to look at in the early game, at least in this matchup.
Yeah, that's what you get when you trust Dead Draw and you run the Dead Draw tech. Dead Draw, the closest thing that we have to a GM that's not actually a GM, one of the absolute best players of the current system throughout the Masters Tour. Still hoping with a good result for himself in the Masters Tour in Madrid coming up that he might end up as a European Grandmaster for the coming season. But that is, I believe, his ladder list that players are now picking up now with that Twilight Drake included. So Dead Draw has good ideas. Who would have thought?
Already though, Casie not messing about with his mulligan. Magic Trick, Violet, Spellwing, Shambhala, and Mana Cyclone. Bit of a mixed bag. I don't really want to say the words, but I will anyway, is Sorcerer's Apprentice will be quite good with this hand, as is often the case in Mage. But I'm going to be interested to see if the Shambhala ends up being almost like a tempo play, which I think we've seen it be used in that way more and more lately.
Yeah, one of the big weaknesses of this version of Priest is that it's kind of like old school mid-range paladins, where they didn't really have any way to interact with board until around turn 3, turn 4. So, you know, back in the day, you used to be able to just play your Knife Juggler or whatever your like key minion was that you usually hold back for a bit of value. You could just jam it against Paladin because you knew they had nothing to interact. That's kind of similar against this Priest right now because they're very, very light on answers to early boards. This version of the deck from Bunny plays 1 Holy Smite. That's the only way you can interact with minions early from off board. So I think tempoing Shambhala early in this matchup can represent a lot of value if they don't get off to a fast minion start on the side of the Priest.
Well, so far, Spellwing comes down from Casie, but Bunnyhoppor has the choice of the Sethic or Wand Maker. One, a little bit more health on it, of course, but that one is also the higher value target that you could potentially get more from later. The Wand Maker will just die to a ping, but honestly, if it gets pinged down, I'd generally take that as a win as the Priest player.
Bunny's going to go Sethic here, which I do respect. Try and force that Arcane Missiles out of Casey's hand in response to try and clear up this board, which I think would be a win. To use your words for Bunnyhoppor here as well.
Look at this instead. Going the other way, where this sets up it to be relatively likely to die next turn.
Oh, this is the Hearthstone turn, Raven. See what this Cleric of Scales offers. Picks up the Renew. Is that enough?
Dead, though.
Raised Dead is a big deal. Apotheosis. I mean, these cards are all good. It's just Renew. Renew is the one that's exciting on this turn immediately. If Bunny would want to use it. Shadow Madness.
Shadow Madness.
Very good card against Mage, but Wave of Apathy is just one of the best cards in the game. So I think that's actually quite kind of a tough choice here.
Yeah, I think just in this specific matchup, Shadow Madness is too good to pass up, right?
Yeah.
You can get hold of waves anyway, but Shadow Madness is so big. Casie, he's gonna go.
Yo! Instant Arcane Breath into instant Azure Explorer for Arcane Breath value. Insane.
Go for the Brain Freeze. This is mainly to just juice up the Cyclone, of course, because he could have gone Arcane Missiles first and had a decent chance at clearing it up. But yeah, just wanted to clear everything off anyway. Wants the extra spell in the tank.
Yeah, it's actually worth thinking about.
Fire Blast.
You have to ask yourself the question, right? What is a random Cyclone spell better or worse than a Brain Freeze to have in your hand at the end of the turn, right? Because you've kind of just cycled that Brain Freeze into something else, whereas you had the opportunity at least to try and save it. You know, as you said, you could try and see with the missiles first whether you got to keep it, but I think it's fine. People very rarely make those kind of plays with this deck.
Yeah, and I think in this matchup as well, because it is minion based, but because you're like, I guess you could argue Casie is winning at that point, that he could just get a different spell instead of the Brain Freeze.
Oh, the value. The value, the value, the value. Do not take silence. That does not work how you think it does in this situation.
Imagine. Also, probably don't cast Power Word Feast either.
Yes. Yeah,
Go
just
for
taking the
play.
resources. See, in case any of you are confused, some people would think that if you silence the Sorcerer's Apprentice there, you keep it. But in fact, it's quite the opposite. The effect that means it's on your side of the board is card text. So when you silence it, it just goes back to the other side of the board immediately, and you don't even get to trade it.
Yeah, and it's a fair. I actually did the same because other card games work like that, which it
Right.
would let you stick it on your side of the board because
Right.
of just how the logic of different games work. But yeah, in Hearthstone,
Just thought we'd keep on top of our interactions here in this series, you know? Just making sure we're getting everything covered.
The wise. My hand is too full.
well, already Conjurer's Coin and Giants are in, or Giant for now, are in hand. Not to be cast quite yet, of course, but that is just a lot of good stuff for Casie. He's just got so much value already. And although I do like to joke about it, the Pyroblast could just be a nice little surprise for Bunnyhoppor, because obviously when it's just a Pyroblast, then yes, it's very jokey and funny, but it's Pyroblast with like a handful of power plays that probably put your opponent in Pyroblast range, right?
Yep. Very, very big deal indeed. And currently, Bunny does not have an answer to how quickly Casie can just push out threats here. Casey's going to start going next turn, and he is not going to stop until something like turn 11 at this point, just with the hand he has right now, which is completely insane. Bunny just does not have the fuel to keep up with that on the other side. Murazons are likely going to be too slow.
Nice pickup though, the Raise Dead for the Cleric, going to be useful there. Also does have the Mind Vision, and if we're saying Casey's hand is good, then Bunnyhoppers can help.
Oh, Soul Mirror though! He needed it. He absolutely needed the Soul Mirror to bridge the gap here. Soul Mirror one turn, find something to do for one more turn, then he would have Plague of Death.
So if that's where his mind is Death actually the correct pick here for Bunnyhoppor? So he has some way to respond to a Conjurer's board?
I think so, yeah. I think you'll have to Death something to stay alive, you know, to not take 1,000,000 damage, then use your Wave of Apathy on the following turn to stall, and then go into the Plague of Death. But of course, we're saying that with full knowledge of just how juiced Casey's hand is right now. Bunnyhoppor just doesn't necessarily know that that's the situation.
And hold on, because here we go. Oh, the second Mana Giant with the Conjurers as well is going to be huge, just to keep that power high, and that's just a casual Grom!
Yeah, leave it as a 4/9. Love it. Alright, there's Cleric again. That's a big deal.
Imagine if Bunnyhoppor actually had gotten had gone for like Draconic Studies or something last turn. If he got it from, say, Cleric. If there's actually, is there any left? Or did you cast them both? No. You might have cast them both.
Sorry, which card?
Draconic Studies, that's all. Just to activate a Murazon.
He does not have any Draconic Studies.
Right, yeah. Oh, this is tough, isn't it? Like you said, there's that one turn gap, really, isn't there? Even if there's Wave now, what happens next turn?
I did wonder for Casie whether it might have even been worth tempoing out another Giant there, since his original Conjurer's Calling outcome was really resistant to Soul Mirror. Like, Soul Mirror didn't actually achieve anything on this turn, right? So it potentially gave an option to go for the throat.
Right.
But then when you look at how there's 3 more copies of Conjurer's Calling remaining in Casey's hand, I guess holding on to a 0-mana Giant does make a lot of sense.
No. Oh!
Hello? Is
Ping
this
the
a ball
1/9.
control series? What's going
Ping
on?
the 1/9. Yes.
That just looked wrong. A 7/8 Grom? Like, no, that's bizarre.
There's the mirror, though.
There's the mirror.
Work out a little bit better for Bunnyhoppor.
He's still gonna be dead though, right?
I guess it depends on the summons from the Death Rattle, doesn't it?
Yeah. 4 damage from the Death Rattle and he's dead still? Like, it doesn't look pretty.
Can fish for something to help out here. Wave of Apathy, next turn he can Plague.
He can. This is true.
And also, once Grom is enraged, even if its attack goes to 1, it can't be re-enraged. Right, so
Yes.
at least one of them won't gain attack damage again the turn after.
Unless you, like, Wave of Apathy and then healed it back to full.
Right, in which then you deserve to lose.
Yeah, don't do that. That sounds bad.
Not too quickly.
If Bunny really wants to save health here, he could also enrage the second Grom first with the Pyromancer.
He could just bop it with the 1/1, right?
You could just bop it with the 1/1,
Yeah.
you're right. Yeah. I am definitely overthinking this.
I was going deep after, but one match in, Sol's already lost it.
Yeah.
Bodes well. Want to heal the Grom? Okay, yeah, good. Two more Groms. Oh! What?
That's just more potential direct damage.
These are some of the best back-to-back Conjurers I've ever seen.
No, they're not. You cast the Ball Control series, Raven.
Some of, I said, not the.
Okay.
Some
okay.
of.
Okay.
What to do?
He's not even used his second Mana Giant yet.
Nope. He
He's
still
got more
has.
Conjurers.
He still has Mana Giant Conjurer's Calling in hand. He still has Mana Giant in hand. Oh my goodness! All right, it's getting there. It's getting there, Raven. It's up there. It's up there.
Oh, he can actually clear this off to give the 3/3s direct face damage.
Nice.
Oh.
All right.
Just
So
has
we
to be
press.
Plague.
So we press Plague. Yep.
He has got another wave, though.
I mean, this Plague of Death pick is just the nuts. Remember, he took it at the time against some potential mid-game options that he could have had. He's like, nope, I am going to wait all the way until... Oh!
Okay, these are the best minions I've ever seen in a game of Hearthstone. That's why I'm going to choose to word this for no reason whatsoever. The Pyroblast in turn 10. Even if this is answered subtle, he cannot answer the Pyroblast.
What? That was so fast as well. It felt like a Solarian Prime Power of Creation. You know, like when you just don't get to choose and it just picks one for you. It's just boom. There's your Reckless Rocketeers. Have them. Barney, I hate to break it to you, mate, but you're dead.
Murazond, hope for the best. That's just going to be game. The sheer value that Casie got hold of with his generation effects this game was ludicrous. It was ludicrous. It's like he got to play Tempo Mage for the first 5 turns of the game. Then for the rest of the game, he played the most value-based control sort of powerhouse deck I've ever seen. It was like a weird version of Specialist we were playing out there.
It was, yeah. He just suddenly teched his deck halfway through an individual game of Hearthstone,
It's insane.
It's what, like, he ended up with more value than Highlander Mage, right? Just in his hand.
Yeah.
Like, let alone just in the overall deck. Just with all the Conjurer's Callings, 2 Mana Giants, Power of Creation, Pyroblast on top of that as well. Like, absolutely insane. But then on top of that, to roll damage off basically every single outcome, Grom off the first Conjurer's Calling, Grom off the second Conjurer's Calling, Troublemaker off the third and fourth Conjurer's Callings, like, every one hit damage. So even though Bunny had set himself up to be able to clear multiple waves of boards, and he was doing a great job with like parceling out with the Wave of Apathy, stretching out his removal as far as he could possibly get, like he actually had a chance there in terms of defeating all of the value that Casie was able to generate because of that Plague of Death pick early on. But because it was damage into damage into damage off every single roll, he just couldn't beat the Pyroblast. He just had 0 outs against the Pyroblast at that point. Like, disgusting game to be on the receiving end of from Bunnyhoppor. And you can start to see it just piling up on top of him game after game at this point as he was on the hill. He just needed one more win to get over the line. That is still the case. But now he has to reset for the long game again because we're just going into Priest against Rogue, which is more of the same, Raven.
It really is. There are a couple of ways that this matchup could speed up. Whether, we've seen a couple of Van Cleefs already carry some games this weekend, so that is an option on Casie's side, who's going to be on the Rogue. Bunnyhoppor also, you can tempo Rogue out if the draws just aren't quite there. They don't get hold of stunners in a secret, don't get hold of Hanar, for example, because questings aren't a good responsive tool, right, to tempo on board, right? They don't normally work. So both players have opportunities to run away with the early game, but a lot of the time there's just enough time for them to even themselves out, and then it becomes a bit more of a drawn out value-based trade for trade matchup. So we'll see if how this game is going to play out. But regardless, this is all coming down to the final game in this series between these two players. The loser has to play in the relegation bracket. The winner gets to play in the playoffs and could book a spot at Worlds next weekend. That's absolutely huge, the difference. I know we keep saying it, but it's true. It's massive.
Yeah, of course, both of these players, even though it won't feel like it for them right now, because it's hard not to get overwhelmed by the possibility of still being able to be relegated this late in the season, but both of these players have had a good season. They're in Division A, first and foremost. That speaks to a good first half of the season. Sure, the second half hasn't come together to the level they would have liked, but it's not like anyone has run away with Division A, and it's not like either of these players have like Viper's record, which I think we can fairly describe as very poor, regardless of which division you end up being in. So the fact they're just both at a 3-3 record in Division A, which is already very hard to qualify for in the first place, you might say, well, how can they go from being relegated to a spot of Worlds? The point is, they both had very good seasons up until this point, so a spot of Worlds could even be a deserved thing if they're then able to just ace their way through the playoffs as well. It's just because of how tightly contested Division A is this season that there's still the threat of that relegation bracket looming over their shoulders.
Right, and for me as well, something to just remind everyone of as well. So huge deal this match, but the loser who is in that relegation bracket has the best chance at surviving in that bracket, as they pretty much start at the beginning of what is basically a gauntlet style bracket for them. So as long as they can win one match out of 4, then they will survive anyway. So it's not like we're saying the guaranteed relegation is going to happen for this loser. It's just the difference between winning and losing is so huge for these players. But we are already in the game. Casie does have access to a relatively early Van Cleef, or at least a mid-game Van Cleef with the help of a Miscreant potentially. But Bunnyhoppor has not exactly got a bad hand himself either.
He does not. That Twilight Drake might just influence things a little bit here, because obviously One Maker dies straight up to backstab, so it's a little bit more vulnerable as a minion on the board. Yes, Bunny taking note, exactly. This is Bunnyhoppor 101. This might not seem like a difficult decision, but Bunny, I think, is not 100% confident in the way he's been playing so far this season. This series. I think he's played great this season overall. So just taking that extra moment, take a deep breath, make sure you get the little things right, because I don't think even this of 2-2 versus 2-3 is an obvious decision against Rogue.
Completely agree. Could just open up more woes than it would help. Though this Twilight Drake is in hand. Obviously can't cast it quite yet. Unfortunately for Bunnyhoppor, I guess no turn 1 Draconic Studies, which would have been very nice for him here. He does just have Kaj, and maybe just playing on curve is enough for now. He has turn 3 Kaj, turn 4 Twilight Drake, turn 5 Cobalt. Like, all of these options to play out just on curve aggressively against this kind of rogue almost demands that there's some kind of secret / stunner happenings going on. I like this.
Yeah, the slightly scary part, I guess, is that shrinking your hand size by 1 here means that the Twilight Drake comes down as a 4/6 on the following turn, and I think 6 is the lowest reasonable number that Rogue can really deal with, like Backstab Vendetta, right? Actually being able to pick it apart very efficiently without using a Blackjack Stunner. But I think that's massively outweighed by the benefits of just having a Kaj on board this turn.
Yep. Yeah, if you do like the other way to look at it, right, is, well, how many actual stats are on board? Yes. And then suddenly, oh, it's way more.
Yes.
Here, though, this Van Cleef from Casie does challenge the Kaj quite well, and of course will help out with the 6 health on the Twilight Drake, as you well pointed out, with the help of a dagger or any kind of additional damage. So maybe, just maybe, Bunnyhoppor takes a step to the side for just a second here. His Cleric could just get an Apotheosis, which cleans this Van Cleef up no problem.
Yes. There's a very realistic possibility here. And if the cleric doesn't get played now, it's hard to imagine when it does get played, because you'd go 4-6 this turn, and then you'd almost certainly want to play the Cobalt on the next turn as well, right? Which would then potentially deactivate the Cleric of Scales for the long term.
Yeah, and with this play, there's always the bonus of, yes, the Twilight Drake dies to Cleave Miscreant Dagger, or Cleave Miscreant Rush Lackey, or whatever. Is that not just good for Bunnyhoppor anyway, because he retains a card again? You know, like, you could just look at it in that respect, right?
Yeah, that's fair. I think that play was really close. Obviously, the world where you hit Apotheosis, it's almost certainly better, but that doesn't always happen. Sometimes you whiff, right?
Yeah, this early in the game, certainly. And yet again, I'm a little bit interested, Sol. What if it's just Wave of Apathy this turn to keep the cards up?
I think this turn is absolutely the Cleric turn now, because now Apotheosis is very good, but also so is Holy Smite at this point, because you could then go Cleric, Sethic, Holy Smite, take another trade. So because you have multiple outs at this point, this now looks like an even cleaner Cleric of Scales than the previous turn.
Even Renew would work, right? If you could wave Renew instead, and then keep it up that way if you wanted to.
Renew. Yeah, sure. No, I like that too.
Not your preferred outcome, of course, but it just gives some backup plan, right? If Cleric just doesn't hit the exact card Bunnyhoppor's after. So yeah, I like this a lot. Well, good options, honestly, for Bunnyhoppor.
Yes.
Wave Apotheosis seems good as well. Maybe he doesn't want to commit to an Apotheosis so early on a minion that's kind of a double win. If it gets bounced, right? Like, if Casie bounces it, he's lost the Death Rattle and the Apotheosis on the minion.
Yeah, I like the line that gets the extra 2-3 in play this turn. This so actually, nice. I like going for the Renew instead of just going for straight up 3 mana on Apotheosis. You load up way too much onto one minion there, I think, for a Blackjack Stunner as well, if you end up going with that line. So I like spreading the love a little bit more here.
Oh, this Breath of the Infinite pickup is going to be insane. Sethic gets killed, but everything just lines up so well.
Well, not quite, because that is very specifically a Totem Goliath that has appeared on the other side. Which does make things a tiny bit awkward, unless Casie has done something very, very dumb here, which I'm sure he is not.
What if... can Bunnyhoppor afford to just ignore that this turn?
Maybe.
Like, what if he goes, like, maybe starts with Thought Steal, goes for Breath, and then maybe pushes Face and just lets it live for now? It does mean he gets, like, the weirdest Soul Mirror next turn ever. I mean, both players are just going to splurge out a ton of totems.
But at that point, your Breath has killed a 2-1, right? Because that trade can happen anyway that you've just seen, and then 3-3 can kill 1-2 anyway. So why not just play Cobalt Spellkin at that point, right?
Sure. That's fair.
Not too quickly.
Twin Tyrant looks pretty solid. The Evasive Worm is a little bit more flexible in, like, just direct removal, but the Twin Tyrant generally is just well statted enough to be a big problem. Its Battlecry very strong, and also if Bunnyhoppor's looking at a Soul Mirror potential next turn, then it just goes into turn 8 even with the Draconic buff or not. We did end up going for another Twilight Drake.
It's the one that's in his deck. The reason that one's in his deck and the other ones aren't is that on average it's better in more situations than the other ones are.
Sometimes you want the cards that aren't in your deck. Have you ever played Mage?
I could just sense that you were so unhappy with that explanation. Yeah. I could just feel it.
Because I know if I said that, you'd be like,
oh, well, it's not always the case, actually. That is indeed my voice. Yep, nailed it.
I didn't know whether to do that one or the I'm a grown-up voice you have sometimes on stream.
Wait, what's the I'm a grown-up voice?
The one where your mic goes funny, you're like, hello, everyone. It's happened once or twice, so a few weeks ago, but it was very funny to me.
Oh, I thought you were talking about an actual voice. You're talking about Darth. You're talking about Darth Sottle, right?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Just use your vape between Alduin so. Here though, with Wave, he can actually just clean up and steal this golem now. It's huge.
Your mind is
Yeah,
not
Cabal Acolyte top lane, while we were being absolute idiots, just ended up being insane for Bunnyhoppor. He preserved that Wave of Apathy very nicely. There was one turn where I was considering it as an option. Didn't even end up bringing it up and just thought, nah, you know what, it's probably better to hold on to it just for an insane tempo swing. And that's exactly what ended up happening here for Bunnyhoppor. Rewarded for the bit of discipline there.
Let the door hit you.
Yeah, this Blackjack Stunner coming down from Casie is going to be able to bounce the golem, but Goliath. Sorry, I always call it golem, always. But it can bounce the Goliath, but it's not even although it's expensive, it's not even the worst minion to be able to just play out again, just because of its death rattle effect being so annoying.
Right. If only it was Totem Golem.
Would Totem Golem even be good? It doesn't generate 8 cards.
Yeah, good point. Good point.
Like 2 mana and it overloads and doesn't give you 6 cards from 7 different classes. Like, is that even good anymore?
Tough turn here now for Bunny, though. Has the secret to dissect, which makes playing any kind of powerful turn here pretty miserable.
What about breath? Can he just get away with breath?
I think that's a possibility, yes. I was also considering the options for just playing Totem Goliath and saying that, like, if it's plagiarize, unlucky. You've just got a Totem
you have
Goliath.
This card too, yeah.
Yeah, and like I can kind of get away with it here, but the problem is that turn would also leave the Blackjack Stunner up on board, which doesn't feel like a good situation to leave yourself in with the threat of Shadow Step.
Yeah, I like this a lot. This keeps his Miscreant alive and gets to heal it, which is nice. But most importantly, it just gives Casie a bit of a rubbish card, especially because he doesn't regularly have dragons.
The Smosh!
Just Tyrion.
That's just Tyrion. That is a 5-mana Tyrion ordering.
It's not a Tyrion 5 drain?
No. He's quite good, though.
Joke or the minion, I'm not sure now.
Both, honestly, you know?
Yes. Next turn, though, Bunnyhoppor does have Twilight Drake Totem Goliath, though, which is a pretty big board to just make our 2 cards, though.
Yo, really?
Just doesn't want a Tyrion.
He's just not taking a Tyrion.
He's scared of Soul Mirror, and it's like, no, I give my opponent a Tyrion now.
Sure.
It's gonna make Bunnyhoppor dissect 4 secrets, although it's just 2 Paladin, 2 Rogue. That makes it a little bit easier to deal with.
I wonder.
Yeah, not particularly with this hand, though. There isn't really the answers Bunny needs. Okay, good start.
He like bop 1. Okay. Discount about 3 different secrets now.
Hello?
Whoa, okay. Double Vendetta gives Bunnyhoppor so much flexibility going forward.
Just get going. Sethic double Vendetta? Are you kidding me?
You fell right into my trap.
Wait.
The Totem Goliath!
Yeah.
The Totem Goliath!
I've lost track of what's going on, I'm not gonna lie. Should there be a Twilight Drake on the board? Did Bunny not finish his turn? I'm pretty sure he didn't pick in a fire. Oh,
no. Yeah, it's just straight up roping. I think it's fine to not play the Drake there because you just have so much mana available for Sethic cycling, right? That I think that's fine. You can just go for the Sethic cycle, but obviously you then have to complete the Sethic cycle to actually pay that off,
Right,
which Bunny absolutely did not do here.
That's part of the reason I was talking about the Twilight Drake, because it's one card, you play it and it's played, right? There's no thought pattern there, is there? I know, obviously, he can generate more cards, but if he's in that much of a rush, just play the big minion. Like, just,
I mean,
it's one card done.
There is the Ambusher on board that needed to be dealt with as well, remember?
What is it? Jaraxxus, Colossus of the Moon, and Harrison now.
I mean, this is a clown hand. Let's be honest.
Next turn, let's go. Would you like Infinite 6/6?
Infinite 6/6 does sound quite appealing, yes.
And a weapon that never really ends, along with 2 Kobold lackeys. That just starts to add up to lethal where I'm looking at it.
Mm-hmm. No mirror entity. To deal with counterspell, spellbender situation. The knowledge that it is Netherwind portal. So now heal up and 2 more spells can pick this apart fairly nicely.
I know I'm in a bad place when I'm thinking about, what if he inner fires soul mirrors this turn? Does that ever do enough?
Alright, you need to get your head back in the game, Raven.
Hey, that was a play. It did something. It just probably didn't do something good.
Yeah, that's true.
He's just... I think Bunnyhoppor has to get a hold of this board somehow. He's losing control of it.
I mean, you always inner fire your Doomsayer now, right? That's just actually what you do. Really? Okay.
It only... Okay, it doesn't only because it will trade with the minions, of course, but it wouldn't actually remove any damage from the board, right?
No, because obviously the Ambusher can't attack while it has 0 damage, so clearing that up doesn't necessarily mean anything this turn.
I guess Rush Lackey.
Right, but that's the point. It does mean that if Casie does want to trade into this and keep his board, then he'd have to be trading into a 9/9 instead of a 0/9, which I think is probably worth it for the cost of an inner fire, but Bunny believes differently.
Reduces his Twilight Drake down a bit, maybe that's a consideration. Okay, is this just 2 big minions now? Are we finally there?
I think it has to be, yes.
The only thing that upsets me about this game so far is that it's unlikely Colossus of the Moon's going to get played because Casie will want hero power every turn.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Wait,
that's what's really important here, Raven.
Hogger, okay. Has Evocation featured in every single game we've cast today?
Give me a quest.
Feels like it. Almost certainly no, because there was a Priest versus Demon Hunter, but I still think there was one invocation in there somewhere. What's the dreaded turn? Shadow Step. Oh, this quest in the Vendetta as well. Double Shadow Step.
It's kind of insane. Vendetta actually doesn't achieve too much here. It can remove the Twilight Drake, obviously, if Casie wants to swing into it. I'm not entirely sure he does. His face damage might just be too valuable. Yep.
Yep, gonna leave it up.
That's the Casie line if I've ever seen it.
Now there's still those double Kobold Lackeys in hand, which is going to be a ton of extra damage.
Yeah.
And Bunnyhoppor on the back foot now.
Oh, Cleric not active. No Apotheosis to be found here.
Is it ever like Wave and then Soul Mirror?
I mean, it's 2 questions that are left over,
spells,
right?
There's too many cards in hand.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If they were just going to be 1/1s, sure, I love that play. Set up counter lethal.
Well,
but it's just not the case here. It's just too much damage from the questing adventurers after the fact.
It's just too many cards in hand, isn't it? That's the issue. If there was like 3 cards in hand, 4 cards, you could think about it that you might be alive. But with the weapon swing as well, it's just too much.
Counter lethal now set up for Bunny, which means Casie has to operate at least somewhat defensively here. Bunny knows that the Breath of the Infinite is there, though.
That's Zeraku.
That is Zeraku in hand, yes. That's activating the Breath currently.
I guess it wouldn't have mattered if he trades anyway, right?
Right.
I wonder.
This leaves a 1-1 up at the end of the turn. Okay, so he's going to Kobold Lackey it first, and then Breath. Alright, yeah, I like this. It's the full clear.
Couldn't you have just played his Zeraku?
Yes.
That looks better than 1/6/6 and a 3/2, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, glad we agree. Casie on 1. Oh! Evocation lethal with Lazul!
Yep. Lazul Evocation.
And if he hadn't have played that second Lackey...
Yep. No,
moon!
just hits all the garbage.
Yeah. That looks like some kind of theme deck, doesn't it? Temple Berserker, Wasteland Assassin, Colossus of the Moon?
Yep.
He's playing his desert deck.
I mean, you just play Wasteland Assassin and then Wave of Apathy, right? That has to be the line.
Looks like it to me. Well, he can death one as well, right? He can death the 6/6.
Not.
Oh, no, sorry. No, he won't have the
No.
mana. He won't have the mana. You're right. Sorry.
Can't do all of that.
Yep, you are right.
Wait, what?
Not move quickly.
What?
I don't understand anymore.
Your opponent's at 1. Is there a board clear this turn that sticks you a minion in play? If that's the case, fine. If there's a board clear that leaves him with a minion, fine. Otherwise, I feel like he has to have gone for the stealth minion here instead.
Wait,
I guess this is similar? It's very similar. Yeah, okay. I'm being too harsh. This is fine, I think.
Yeah, because they... Oh!
Oh, no! What? No! Are you actually serious?
Wow, Bunnyhoppor can't believe it. I don't think Casie can believe it. And look at what the game has come down to. The series went to Game 5, and it was one of the most ludicrous matches of Hearthstone I have ever cast. I feel like I'd say that every week, but it's true for this one. Everything going out there, and Casie is going to be safe with that victory in the final game. And it came down to, what, the 5th Grom of the series, I feel like? 100 evocations, 6 Groms, a missed Tyrion. Like,
it could have been a Tyrion, it could have been a Zeraku. Casie greeted it, and it ended up winning him the game with the Grom at the end. But on reflection, yeah, I think Bunny's play at the end was very, very reasonable. Because he still set up a very convincing lethal, right? Like, he didn't necessarily need the stealth minion there. If he just has 4 minions in play, like, that's very, very similar to just, threatening the threat of one stealth minion. He also removed significantly more damage from play, or at least 1 more damage, I think, than just playing the Wave of Apathy and there being 4 1-attack minions left on the board or whatever it was. So I think that line from Bunny at the end is absolutely fine. But, I mean, what a ridiculous game of Hearthstone to end that series on, right? Obviously, Casie might eventually be relieved or happy or whatever word you want to describe the emotion, but right now what he's feeling is, kind of guilt and sorrow for what he's done to his friend and practice partner in that situation, because I'm sure he never wanted to be in this spot in the first place, like playing against Bunnyhoppor with the fate of one of them ending up in the relegation bracket, and then to have the game play out like that and end like that, like, you don't want to do that to a friend in that spot, right?
That's it. It's less what he did, because that's what happens when you play a friend or a teammate or whatever.